to
Yeah,
start?
I have started the recording.
Okay. So Mitali, I think you can introduce yourself and even you can start the first half of the streaming.
Thank you, Rohit. Okay, so I'll just start with this one.
So you are sharing screen or should
Yes,
I?
yes, yes, I'll share the screen.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll start with the streaming in Mule. We'll try to understand why streaming comes into the picture of the MuleSoft. Since MuleSoft is an integration platform, we have we were facing a lot of issues with a large amount of data. So streaming supports efficient processing of large data objects such as files, documents, and records by streaming the data through the Mule rather than reading the whole thing into the memory at once and overloading that. So, streaming provides the following advantages. It allows to consume very large message in an efficient way in the application and the flows. It also loads the memory into small streams and not directly into the memory, and thus making it more efficient. We'll see now why the streaming concept come into the picture and how it used to handled in the earlier cases, even in the other programming languages like Java and other concepts as well. So earlier, what used to happen, we used to have a source and database. So it could be anything. It could be coming from the database, a file, SFTP server, or anywhere. So whenever there is a large amount of data, let's suppose 10 GB or something, we cannot read that data at once and then making that application worst. So, what used to happen in the previous cases when there was no streaming case in the MuleSoft, it used to take the whole data and load into the memory heap at once. And then sometimes the out of memory exception used to come. Let's suppose our file had a 10 GB file and our memory was only 1 GB. So what used to happen when we used to load the whole file into the memory heap, it used to give the out of memory exception and thus making the processor speed slow and even failing the application. So generally what happens, the MuleSoft generally works on transferring the data from one place to the another, like taking from the source to the destination. And the memory heap helps in storing the data into it and providing it to the destination. So we'll see how it used to work in the other programming languages as well. So consider this case, we have a very big file of 1 GB. We have some Java program or there can be many scripts we can use to split this file. It was 1 GB and our heap memory was only of 20 MB, let's suppose. So what it will be doing, it will be splitting this file into small files having the memory less than 20 MB each. So that when the one small file is loaded into the memory, it will not be making out of memory exception and also not affecting the performance of the application. Thus, in this way, this big, very small file will be split into small files and loading into the memory heap with small files and reaching to the destination, thus making the application working efficient. The next case is, let's suppose we have a database and it had some 10,000 records and we want to get the offset from 201 to 300. In this case, we are trying to get the data of the records from 201 to 300. So what happens? In this case, you must have even heard in the Elasticsearch and the Couchbase as well, or the Salesforce as well. We have an n number of records. So instead of loading the whole data into the memory, what we do, we can read it with the pagination. So pagination basically helps in dividing the whole data into small, small pages. It will be like a watermarking at the end of the page. You will be reading it like a novel with each page every time instead of going through the whole data. So we will be marking that this will be page 1. We will be reading this time up to page 1 and then next moving to the page number 2. So you won't be needing to go back to the page number 1 again. So in this way, it is more efficient and helps in processing the data efficiently. So in this case, Page by page, it would be loading into the heap memory and reaching to the destination. Now we will see how the streaming is working and what the stream part is. So in the case of the stream, what happens, there is a cursor which will be pointing at the beginning of the database or any file or SFTP we have, which is very big. Then that cursor would be encapsulated in an object. The object is nothing but the stream. So that object, the encapsulated object, we called as a stream. So every time, whenever there is a database, it will be taking a small stream from that and loading into the memory heap and then transferring it to the destination. We'll try to see with the analogy. It's a bit funny, but it's more relevant to understand with that. So here's a river. Let's suppose we have a river streaming from the mountains, and there's a person standing in between, and it has to stir the water. Let's suppose we can consider it as a processor. So it is processing the data which is reaching to it. In this case, it's a river. Now it is coming from a location from the mountain, and it is not coming at once. So this person does not have to stir the whole river water at once. It is coming in bits, which is called as streams here. So the process of this person is very efficient. It does not have a lot of load. So instead of working on how to manage the database and memory heap and processing a huge amount of data, it is processing in bit by bit stream. So whatever the river stream is reaching up to here, it is just processing that and leaving that. Now we will see the streams in the MuleSoft 4. Earlier in the MuleSoft 3, we used to have only non-repeatable streams. Let's understand this case first. So non-repeatable streams, in sense, let's suppose there was a fish in the sea. Once you catch that, you cannot catch that again at some other point in the river. So once it is done and being utilized, you cannot use that again. So this used to create a lot of issues in the MuleSoft 3, though we were making it very efficient, the processing, but sometimes we might need to use that stream and again in the process. So in that case, there was a disadvantage of the non-repeatable streams. So let's take this example of the non-repeatable streams. So it cannot be read more than once. It cannot even be consumed simultaneously. Though it's very profound, but needs careful treatment while working with this. It's very profound because there was no additional memory buffers required and no input-output operation was required on the basis of the disk. It is very suitable for the large processing of streams, but just because of the sum of the lag, we have moved to the in-memory and file memory-based streams. So in this case, the input stream is reaching from the source to the destination. This was the processor. Let's understand the disadvantages. Let's suppose we have this flow number 1, and there's a listener which is a non-repeatable stream taking it from the payload. Now we want to write that payload into 2 files. Let's suppose file number 1 and file number 2. So when it was non-repeatable streaming, it can write only at one file which will be coming at first. After that, the stream has been consumed and it will not be available to the next processors. In this case, the write function of the file. So the stream is coming from here and it has been reached this particular processor of this flow and has been consumed. Now it cannot reach to the another processor for the consume part because it has already been consumed. Similarly, in this flow, we have a transform message. We have already utilized the stream, so it will not be going to the log processor. And thus, it was creating an issue, and we might have to store it at some other place, and thus making the performance non-efficient. The second disadvantage of this one was the consecutively consuming the data. Let's suppose we have a scatter and gather and we have a listener. From the listener, we are getting a huge data file coming from some CSV or some other source database or something. So we are reading that file, and in the scatter and gather, we have two operations, write and log. So it cannot happen in the non-streamable streams, because once it has reached the write operation, it will not be going to the logger, and the opposite goes the same. So if it has reached the logger, it will not be going to the write operation. To overcome this issue, we have this in-memory repeatable stream thing came in the Mule 4. So what used to happen in here, the source in the database and whatever the data we have which is large, we used to have an input stream which is same again, a cursor which is encapsulated inside an object which we call as a stream. So what we used to do, instead of directly consuming the stream at the processor, we used to load that stream into the buffer which is in memory, and we used to perform the action and consume the data which is present in the buffer and not directly onto the input stream. In this way, it will be available to all of the processor. Now, we'll see how to make the configuration of this one. In this case, we can consider an initial size of the buffer. Because it's in memory, we can give a minimum by default size of 512 KB, and this will be the unit size. Now let's suppose we have a database of 1 GB, and one by one we are sending some 600 KB of data. So when it reached to the input stream, it checked for the buffer size, and what happened, 600 is greater than the 512. So what it will do, it will increment the size by 512. So initially it was 512, then it got incremented again by 512 and make it 1024. Now that 600 data can be loaded into the buffer and thus will be available to all of the processors. Now, next we will see there was a one drawback. Let's suppose now it has reached its maximum buffer size, that is 1024, and the data of the input stream was greater than that. Let's suppose it was 2000 KB. So what it will do in that case? It has no other options to do, and thus it used to give the exception and out of memory exception, and thus making the process flow very non-efficient to work with. After this, a new thing came into the picture, which is file stored repeatable stream. So in this case, this part is same. The stream, we are taking streams, buffer in memory, we will be giving some initial size to it. But apart from that, instead of giving it an increment size and a maximum buffer size, what we used to give, we used to have another buffer which will be on the disk. So whenever there will be a data, let's suppose 600 KB comes to the buffer 1, which is greater than the initial size of the buffer 1, which is 512 KB. So it will be going to the buffer 2, which is on disk. And as everyone know, we can load any amount of data onto the disk. So this will help in solving the issue which was with the in-memory. And thus this stream would be available to all the processors. And we can work efficiently with these. So coming from the picture of the non-repeatable streams, which was causing two issues, that it cannot be processed simultaneously and cannot be consumed more than once, has been resolved by both of these to make it more understandable and to make it more reusable in the MuleSoft. It came up with the file stored repeatable stream in the cases when we have a huge amount of data and we don't want to take the risk. So in that case, we will be using the file stored repeatable streams. This is available in the Mule Enterprise Edition. We can choose the streaming strategy. By default, it will be the repeatable file stored stream in the Mule 4. In the Mule 3, it was not there. We used to have only non-repeatable streams. Next question comes, most of the people I have seen gets confused with the stream and the iterable connectors. When we have the data in the database and the Salesforce, and we say we have a huge records and the data in the database and we want to read that, so we must understand one thing, that the when we have the database, we have the data in the form of the records, and when it's in the Salesforce, it will be in the form of the objects. So they have already predefined format of getting the data, that is in form of the records or the objects. So in this case, what we do, we give the initial buffer size, but we never give the buffer unit, because the buffer unit would be the record for the database and the object for the Salesforce. We just tell them that at once it can take 100 objects or records, and it can increment up to 100. The maximum memory would be 500. But in the case of the stream, because file is FFT and the data coming from the HTTP and the sockets is not iterable, in sense we cannot define and split that into small objects or records. So we actually split that data in the format of the buffer unit called KB. So we divide that data in the small units of buffer unit. We can give KB, MB, GB according to your respective use. By default, it's KB. We will be giving the initial buffer size, so it will be dividing the data in this format of 512 KB each. So each stream would be of this particular size initially, and then will keep on increasing as per the requirement and the maximum buffer size. Now I would like Rohit to share his screen and continue with the demo and the data wave streaming in the MuleSoft.
Thank you, Mitali. A very well presentation, and you have explained the streaming very well. So let me
Thank you.
share my screen, and please confirm me, Mitali, once it is visible.
Yes, it's visible, Rohit.
Okay.
Yeah. Rohit, before starting, yeah. So can we take some questions in between, like to make it more interactive? If some questions are
Okay.
there for Mitali's session, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
starting.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, let's wait for a yeah, some 30, 40 seconds. Anyone have any questions? Yep, I think Rohit, you can continue. We will take yeah, no questions so far.
Okay. So, guys, you can even post the questions in a Q&A, question and answer tab. Mitali can see the questions there only, and she can respond them on the message also, and she can respond after my session. Okay. So I am sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so what is a stream and why do we use streams? Okay, so a stream is basically a sequence of data. Whenever data we use in our programming flows, it flows through a stream. A stream can be thought of as a channel connecting a processor or a logging unit. So why we use streaming in the database? Because database supports end-to-end streaming through a flow in a Mule application. So what's the purpose of the streaming? Why we use it? So streaming speeds up the processing of a large document without overloading memory. So it means it has more relevance in the context of large document when we are getting large amount of data. Okay, so data we process stream data in the form of bytes and bytes. So as the bytes arrive, it processes according to the processor, and instead of scanning the entire document to index it, it scan in the form of bytes and bytes. This behavior helps the data weave and the Mule to process data faster and consume fewer resources than the default process for reading and writing the data. Even we will see in the demo session how the timing difference between the streaming and the non-streaming. So let suppose, so we have two cases, non-streaming as well as the streaming. So let us suppose we have a CSV record, we have headers, and in the under this we have records like four records: record one, record one, record two, record three, and the record four. So in the case of non-streaming, so we can even imagine processor P1 can be like we have a listener, P2 can be a transfer message, P3 can be a set payload. Okay, so if we are not keeping the streaming, we are not streaming the data. So record 1, record 2, record 3, and record 4. All those 4 records are going to store into the P2 heap memory. Then after the logic of the transfer message, then it will go to the processor P3. It means it will overload the memory of the P2 processor. So what if the, for example, if P2 has less memory, for example, it have 10 MB memory left, and the data that we are getting is around 15 MB. So we can't give all the 4 records at once because it has memory shortage. So and then we are coming through the concepts of streaming. So in the streaming, all the 4 records are going to split into the individual records, and then each individual record is going to store into the processor, and then after the particular logic of that processor, then that particular stream is going to go to the next processor. For example, in this, if we are getting 4 records, record 1, record 2, record 3, record 4, after the streaming, you are getting all the streams, record 1 stream, record 2 stream, record 3 stream, and the record 4 stream to the processor P3. But you need to keep aware that all the streams that we are getting, it is in the sequential manner. It is not like that you are going to get firstly record 4, then record 1, record 3. No, always the sequential access to the streams. So firstly, processor P3 is going to get record 1, then record 2, record 3, and the record 4. Then how we can enable streaming in our Anycon Studio? Because streaming is not enabled by default. So we need to enable the streaming. So we can do this by 2 methods. So we need to configure the properties. So we need to use 2 configuration properties to stream data in a supported data format. Firstly, streaming property for reading source data as a stream. To enable streaming, when reading source data, you must set the streaming reader property to true on the data source. So what's the data source? Data source means from where the data is coming. If it is coming through the listener, then you need to enable the streaming on the listener part. If it is coming through a file, new or read or new or updated one, then you need to enable the streaming on file configuration property. If it is coming through FTP, then you need to enable there. So you need to enable the streaming property to true on the data source only. Okay, you can enable streaming on a data source through the MIME type setting output MIME type. So by default, output MIME type would be false. So to enable it, you need to set the output MIME type, and then you need to set streaming equal to true. Then we have also deferred writer property for passing an output stream directly to the next processor message in a flow. After processing stream data, you can stream the output directly to another message processor. To facilitate this behavior, use the deferred writer property in the output directive of the database stream. What does it mean? It means, for example, if P2, for example, P3 is getting the stream data through the P2, but if I also want to send my stream data to processor P4 also, so what can I do? In the P3, I can set the defer writer property to the output application JSON as a deferred equal to true. So it will pass the output as a stream also to the next processor. So we will see in the demo part. So next, the basic unit of the stream is specific to the data formats. In the streaming, only 3 data formats are supported: CSV, JSON, and the XML. A record in a CSV document, an element of an array in a JSON document, a collection in an XML document. Streaming access each unit of the stream sequentially. What I have told you earlier, that you can access each stream in the sequential manner only. That is, first record 1, then record 2, record 3, and record 4. Streaming doesn't support random access to a document. Although streaming does not support random access to the entire document, A database script can access data randomly within each record because each record is loaded into the memory. It means you can't access like record 2 before record 1, but within the record 1 you can access the fields. Like if record 1 consists of ID, name, gender, so you can access firstly gender then ID because record 1 is loaded into the memory. Okay, so let me show you. See, in the CSV, first is header, ID, gender, email address, first name and the last name. And then under this, we have records. Record 1, record 2, and like this, we have 9 records. In the JSON, we have element of an array, and each one is record. Record 1, record 2, and record 3, and n number of records. While in XML document, we have collection. So like for example, here we have data set, which is collection of records. So record 1 collection, record 2, record 3, and the record 4. Okay. So let's move to the demo part. So
Before
let's make,
demo, Rohit, like some questions are there. If we can take it.
okay.
Hi Pankaj, I am answering them, DMing them one on one, so I guess it will be fine.
Okay, you want to take it later, right?
Yeah, I am already taking it side by side. I have
Okay,
answered to
okay.
Virendra and Shubhra. Will be doing for the question as well.
Can you post your answer? I cannot see here in the group.
Yeah, I was DMing them.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
I'll send them directly in the chat box.
Okay, okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah, Rohit, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mitali. Thank you, Pankaj. So let's start creating a new fresh project, Mule project. Give project name anything, like for example, if I am giving demo 2 and finish. So let's drag one listener and one is transform component. Configure the listener. We are configuring it to the port 8081 and give it any path. For example, if I am giving non-stream, and in the transform message, for example, if I am getting a CSV data and I want it to convert into JSON, so I can directly give it JSON and the payload. Okay. So see, initially nothing is there in the MIME type. If I am going to supply application.csv, so for now, my listener would be data source because I am going to pass my data through the postman through this listener only. So in this, see, you can see parameter streaming. It is false. So I am keeping it is false because I don't want to do streaming, so that I can tell you what's the time difference, how it is working. Okay, so for now it is non-streaming. Okay, so let's run the application non-streaming. Postman. For example, I don't want to file the, I want to pass the body. So raw, and if I am passing the body in the form of CSV, so I have copied this CSV where I am passing 9 records. I need to convert my URL endpoints. I need to run this application also. So once it is deployed, we can So our application is deployed. Let's hit the URL. So we are getting the output response 9 records. So see what the time you are getting. 824 millisecond is taken by this request to complete. What if I am going to enable the streaming? So just you need to go there in the output MIME type, first configuration property, you need to set it to true. Save it, and even directly into the configuration XML, you can even give it streaming it to true if you want to give. You can even give in the configuration XML. So now it is configured. Listener, let's change the non-streaming to streaming. Save it. Once it is saved. So 824 millisecond for non-streaming. Now let's see for streaming, how much timing we are getting. So it is deployed. See, 77 millisecond. We are just having a 9 records. So see, even with the 9 records, you can see the time difference that you are getting with the streaming and the non-streaming. Imagine if you have a lot of like thousands and millions of records, then in the real time you will see how much the time difference between the streaming and the non-streaming, how much it is affecting your memory. It is not overloading your memory. So let's even try to find out whether it support random access to a document or not. Okay, so let's make it to false only. So in the non-streaming, what we are getting, let's see. For example, if I am accessing last record and the first record, so in the non-streaming, what you're getting that you can randomly access within the document, within the records, if you are setting non-streaming. So once it is deployed, yes, deployed, I'm using the same URL. So see, 9 and 1. What if I set the streaming equal to true? So then you can't randomly access within the document. So let's hit up. See, after accessing the last document, it is not able to go back to the previous record. Like you can't go back to record 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 3. So that's why you are getting null. But within the record, you can get, like if I am trying to access, for example, I am supplying ID, gender, email. Okay, so if I will try to access last name and then ID, let me, then you are trying to payload 0 and dot ID. It is allowed in the streaming. See, you are getting last name and then ID. So it means what we have read in the PPT that streaming doesn't support random access to a document, but it support random access to the within the records. Okay, so let's move to CSV streaming. CSV is the simplest format for the streaming because of its structure. Each row below the CSV header is a streamable record. So let's move it to demo where we are going to transform a CSV payload into a JSON output with and without using streaming and calculate the time taken for both the processes. So I'm doing some modification in this only. So this is the listener. Let's move. So now I am going, so I have an input folder. So from this input folder, I am going to give my file name, whatever the file name, like big.json. I have 5,000 record, then small.csv, small.json. So I am going to supply the file name through my query params, and then I will read that query param, and then I will try to read that file, and then will transform to the CSV to JSON. Then I will write to particular location, and then I will see how much the time difference between the streaming and the non-streaming. So, okay. So let's drag one variable, another variable. This variable would be file name. And I will access this variable to query param. And this would be the start time, whatever the time. It will store the current date time. Then I will read this file that we are getting through attribute.query param. Do configuration. Now browse the path. For example, import big.csv. So in the double quotes, you need to convert backward slash forward slash and the file name should be dynamic that you are getting through variable. Then in the transform message, I am just payload CSV to JSON. Then I will write this file to a particular location. And file location would be instead of input, we have output folder, and I have one code snippet. What I am doing here, whatever the file that I am getting, I need to write that file into the output folder and to a particular extension. For example, if I want in the format of JSON, so I am just slicing up that file. So like if I am getting x.csv, so I need to slice that x, then I need to append x.json. So just I am doing the same. Okay, then one end timer. And value would be the same one. Now I will keep one payload which will tell you the difference between the start time and the end time. So I have one snippet file for this also. So in this, what I am doing, I am importing 2 milliseconds from the database util timer, and then I am trying to find out the total time difference between the start time and the end time. Now, earlier earlier time we have configured the streaming on the listener part, but now there is no requirement on the data source on the listener, because now we are going to get the data from the read operation, file read operation. So we need to enable the streaming on the file read. Go there in the MIME type, application CSV, and then you need to enable the parameter streaming. And for now, I am keeping it as false because I want to show the timing for the non-streaming. So make it to none. And now I am sending a file name big.csv. Okay. And let's make this application deploy. As this application is deployed, and send it. So you are getting like 3958 milliseconds. Now let's make the stream equal to true and see how much the time difference you are getting. Save it. Once it is deployed, see 908 milliseconds, and for non-streaming you were getting around 3000. So you are getting an idea like how much the time difference you are getting in the streaming versus non-streaming. Okay, so we have covered CSV streaming. Then we have Json streaming also. The unit of Json stream is each element in array. Here we will pass the JSON. Now let's see how we can transform the similar one like CSV. Just we need to do some modifications. So firstly, MIME type we have set. So we need to keep it as a JSON. Then the read also, I think I have set up CSV. Let's make it to JSON. In the transform message, JSON to CSV. So let's CSV. And write operation, here you can write JSON to CSV. So let's see if the application is deployed or not. And for now, I'm making streaming as false. So give the file name big.json that we have, big.json, and send it.
Rohit, can you please show them the input and the output location of the files? Some have the questions regarding how the input and output file locations look like and the files look like.
Sure. Okay, so guys, file name that we are getting, for example, I am passing a file name in the form of query param, big.json. So anything that we have in this input folder. Okay, so whatever the file name that I am passing, so I am getting it in a variable. Then I am using one file read operation. In this, what you can do, like directly you can browse the path where you are storing your path file. So for example, in the input folder, I have big.csv, big.json. So you can directly, but you need to replace backward slash, forward slash. Okay, so like this. So C underscore MuleSoft Mule Meetup input I have, but now I am making, I am giving the file name in the form of dynamic value, because I don't want to give like big.json. Then it will work for big.json. Just I am using the file name that I have in the variable, that I have stored in the variable that I am getting through the query parameter. So see MuleSoft Mule Meetup input, then I am searching for that particular file in this directory. And same for the write operation. See MuleSoft Meetup that we have, see MuleSoft, then we have Mule Meetup, then we have input and output folder. And for output folder, what we have done, we want that file extension should be followed. Like if I am giving .csv, then I like CSV to JSON. So what I want to slice. Like if I am giving rohit.csv, and then I want to transform to rohit.json. So I want to slice up that file by first, like where.file name split by dot. So it, and then I am taking the array 0 means first value like Rohit. Then I am appending json.csv.csv means json to csv.csv. So what you will get in the output folder like this, big XML to json.json to csv XML. I hope doubts are clear. So where I was, so yeah, I need to send query for JSON. So 1392 I am getting where the streaming is not enabled. Okay, so let's enable the streaming. Save it. One 1189 we are getting, then 798. So yes, we are getting the time difference between the streaming and the non-streaming. Big.json cover contain less records, that's why we are getting less difference. But if you have a large number of records in the document, then you are going to see major time difference. Okay, then third one is XML streaming. Okay, before this, you need to keep note that in the database 2.2.0, support for JSON streaming for Mule 4.2 was limited by the requirement that the root be an array, means the root should be an array. But after Mule 4.3, it includes streaming to array that are not at the root of the input. What does it mean? For example, if I have this, so initially this should be an array and you can't give anything inside in the form of array. Now you can give, for example, if I am giving address, so now you can give in the form of array. It is allowed. Okay. And we have XML streaming. XML streaming is more complicated than JSON because there are no arrays in the document. We have collections. To enable XML streaming, we need to enable the streaming equal to true, as well as we need to do some collection path streaming also. So we need to set the collection path reader property to define the location in the document to stream. Let's see how we can transform our XML payload to the JSON. Okay, so let's do some modification here only. So MIME type should be XML. And read MIME type should be XML. And now for now I am keeping it false. And transform message, where you are going to transform XML to JSON. So you need to give JSON, and in the right, XML to JSON.json. Okay, so yeah, we are good. So just compile this file and run it. Yes, it is. So let's give big.xml, send it. non-streaming 2178. Let's move it to streaming. How we can enable the streaming? So again, file read, where we are going to enable the streaming because it is the data source. From here only the data is coming. So what you need to do, you just go to the MIME type. You need to set the streaming property to true, but along with this, you need to add another parameter, collection path. And what would be the value? So value would vary, guys. So for example, if I am giving big.xml, okay. So let's open big.xml only. Edit with Notepad++. So see, root tag value. Whatever the root tag value is there, you need to give that value in the collection path. It is data set. If I will give employee, then it would be employee. If I will give Rohit, then you need to give the value Rohit. Whatever the root tag value, it should be in the collection path. Okay, so what you can do for now, it is data set. Let's get data set value. Enable is true. So let's see whether the application is deployed or not. Guys, you need to keep aware that you need to give the value of the collection part to the root tag, else you will get error. So let's see, 1125, half time is reduced in comparison to non-streaming. Then validate a script for a stream data. The database validator, which is triggered by the stream capable annotation in the script, checks a script against the following criteria. The variable is referenced only once, no index selector is set for negative access, and no reference to the variable is found in nested lambda. Okay, it means these are the three conditions that stream capable annotation checks. If any of the one condition fails, it means you can't stream the data. Stream capable is very strict while checking the streaming. Okay, so let's see and verify each condition. So let's move to database playground, for example. So for now, for example, payload. So see, we have payload. Then I'm just doing output application JSON. Now I am doing stream capable. And stream capable needs input directive. Means input in the form of payload. Means input, and my input is payload. Is variable, then you need to give vads dot something input payload, and what is the format? Application, and it is a format of JSON. Application, JSON. Got it? So see, for now, so see input payload application JSON stream capable. So yes, for now it is capable. Now we will validate each single condition. The variable is referenced only once. Means you can't reference variable more than once. Means for example, if I will give payload, then payload is not allowed. See what you are getting, variable payload. Variable payload is referenced more than once. So first condition is failed. So it is not stream capable. Second is negative index are not allowed. For example, if you will try to access, payload is not stream capable. Negative index -1 access is not allowed. Then third, no reference to the variable is found in nested lambda. Means you can't give the variable in the nested lambda. For example, if you have payload map, and then if you are supplying payload, see what is saying variable, and for now I'm giving 1, 2, 3. What is saying payload? Variable payload is referenced in a different scope from where it was defined. So it means you can't give the variable payload inside a nested lambda. Payload is not stream capable. So yes, now streaming output. After processing, so we in the initial part we have seen that we can stream the data by two ways. One is setting the output MIME type streaming equal to true, and second one is deferred property. You can even use the deferred equal to true. So streaming output, after processing stream data, you can stream that output directly to another message processor. To facilitate this behavior, use the deferred writer property in the output directive of the database script. For example, output application JSON and deferred true. Note that exceptions are not handled when you set deferred equal to true. For example, you can see this behavior in Anyquant Studio when a flow throws an exception. If you are running an application in Studio debug mode, an exception occurs in a transform message component. When deferred equal to true, the console window logs the error, but the flow doesn't stop at the transform message component. We will see in the demo point. So let's move to it. So let's, like for example, I have one POC also for this. So JSON to XML, we will see how we can do it. Even we can try here also, for example. So we want to convert JSON to XML. So what you need to do? Firstly, you need to convert JSON. Then read property. Here also you need to set JSON. And yes, it is not XML. Remove the collection path. For now, I am giving it true. Then transform is transform to XML. Then we will also see stream capable here also. Stream capable. And it needs input directive, and input directive input payload application JSON. So XML needs outermost tag. So for example, I am giving employee okay. Then so where you need to keep the property deferred equal to true in the output directive. Deferred equal to here. And in the right, you just need to change the type where you are going to write JSON to XML. Okay. For now, in the output folder, we have lot of 3 files. I am deleting it so that you can understand very easily. So file is console. Even stream capable thing you can see directly here also. For example, if I will try to access payload -1, see it is getting error. Payload is not stream capable because you can't give negative index. Okay, for example, if you will try to access more than one time payload, then also it will say not allowed. Variable payload is referenced more than once. So see, same thing that I was saying in the data week playground. Okay. So for now, everything is set. File is application is deployed, and now you need to give JSON and streaming is allowed. Let's see 1213 and you should get one file in the output folder. So yes, you have get one file in the big JSON to XML.xml, and the file size is 9089. Got it? So it is means this transform message is getting the data in the form of stream from the file read processor, and it is even giving the processor write, means write component is also getting in the form of stream data. Means transform message is getting the input stream as well as passing the data in the form of output stream. Then we have read this, that once you are setting deferred equal to true, and if any exception is coming at the transform component, then you are not going to see it. How? Let's try it. For example, in the transform component, I am trying it and I am not giving any tags. So hopefully it should give error. And in the output folder also I am deleting it. So no file in the output folder. It is there. Let's send it. 251 millisecond it is taken. Less time. One file is there, but it is 0 KB. And go to console also. You are getting error. See, you are getting error. What's the error is? Cannot coerce array. Okay, because you are not giving any tags to the XML, so you can't coerce array. So you are getting error in the console window that we are seeing in the PPT. So you can see this behavior, that console logs the error, but the flow doesn't stop. Means flow doesn't stop and you are getting 200 okay. You are getting output, means rest components are working properly. So this is the drawback of deferred equal to true. So, and even in the output folder, you will see once the transform component failed, then it will move to write property and it will write with the empty. So you won't see anything. Got it? So after like trying with different records, I have compiled up like what's the time difference that I have get with different records. So when I have tried to convert CSV records to JSON, CSV with 250 records, I got 181 millisecond for non-streaming and 237 for streaming. 5,000 record 270, then 205, and 50,000 1465 and 469. It means as the number of records are getting increased, you are getting more time difference between the streaming and the non-streaming. Then JSON array element to CSV. One is JSON array with 250 elements. You are getting 369 millisecond for the non-streaming and the 308 for the streaming. Then for 5,000 element 433 and 382 for non-streaming and the streaming respectively. And the JSON array with the 50,000 elements, you are getting 928 and 441 for non-streaming and streaming. So it means roughly double time is taken in the case of non-streaming. While JSON array element to XML, JSON array with 250 element 244, 279, 5,525 and 409, and 50,000 element 1007 and the 745. It means yes, time is less. Even for the XML collection to JSON, you can see. So before this, I have designed one POC. It is a where you can see what even the best practices, how you can follow. Okay, even you can see how we can configure. See, I am configure my working directory, everything in config.yml, input directory, output directory. So I am making my code more dynamic. So you can see in any code, in any flow, you can see I am making everything more dynamic. I am making one flow reference to start timer, end timer, then read operation. Here I am reading through config.yml and directly I am appending the file name. Then transforming it, writing to the particular directory, and then flow reference, which will which will set the end timer and set the response for the timing difference, then should be the best practice that you should remove the variables which you are using so that memory won't be wasted. Okay, so yes, so we have covered for the data with streaming. So I think Amit and Pankaj, now I think we need to cover the question and answers, and then we will go for the quiz.
Yes, yes, Rohit. Yes, this is very good session. So let us take the feedback and answer the question and answer.
Okay, sure.
So guys, meetup recording will be available on the Faridabad Meetup page, the same event, and all of the recordings are available. So anyone have any questions or want to discuss any scenario, please let us know so that we can like help you with the mic options.
Pankaj, is there any way, like, I guess Nawaz Sharif has a question.
Namaste,
He's
Sharif.
asking,
Okay.
yeah,
Nawaz.
he's asking for the link of the videos.
Link of the like we have the let me show the page. I'm saving my screen. It will be good for the new joiners also. Like guys, you can join. Go to you. Can you see my page? My screen.
Yes, yes.
So you can go to the this meetup page, okay, and go to the event this group, Faridabad group, okay. And in this like you can reach to any event, right? So suppose like I'm going to here, so we can see yes the recording is coming up. Okay, we can play the recording. Okay. So some of the events might not have the recording, might like a recordings must not happen or not gather. Okay, so but yeah, most of the meetups will have the video recordings in this event. Okay. Okay. Yep. Anyone have any questions, guys? So, yep. Amit has shared the link on the chat, so please follow that link. Okay, and please also like you can also provide the feedback to the organizations. Okay, and also like we are looking for next speaker. Okay, so if you want to volunteer as a speaker in the next event, so please try to reach us. Virendra has some questions. We can handle reception in streaming. Rohit.
Yeah, I have answered
Yeah.
him
Okay.
directly.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks you. And I think Rohit, now we can go to the Kahoot. This is
Yes, I think.
so Amit, you will be sharing or Rohit?
Amit.
Yes, Pankaj, I'll be doing it. Okay, yeah. So thanks, Rohit and Mitali, for this wonderful session. So
Thank you, Amit
and
and Pankaj, for supporting
yeah,
us.
thanks everyone for joining and being a wonderful audience over Saturday. So I will quickly share my screen. And as Pankaj already know, so this is my last meetup as a meetup leader. So I'll be stepping down as a meetup leader from this particular group.
But you said no, you will wait for some more time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so basically that this is the last meetup because there is only 1 week which is remaining, so I'll be stepping down as. So, guys, we will be using Kahoot for the quiz. So you need to, if you are using a mobile, you can download the Kahoot app, or if you are using browser, you can just visit kahoot.it and just use this game pin, which is 8836937. I'll just put it into the chat window. So I've just given the link so that you can use that link to join. And while you are joining here, please put your real name. Don't put anything which we are not able to understand, because this is really important for us to find out who is the winner for this particular meetup.
Pankaj or Amit, I think audience is not aware like how to use Kahoot.
Most of
Can
them
you
should be aware.
can you tell them once more? I think.
Okay, so basically what you need to do is you just need to copy this. Okay, you just need to visit kahoot.it. Okay, go to kahoot.it in your browser. Even if you're in mobile, you can use this kahoot.it. You'll ask the game pin. Okay, you just need to enter your game pin, which is 833. Sorry, 883. I'll just put it over here. 883 6937. And you just hit enter. So once you hit enter, it is going to connect, and then it is going to ask your name. So you'll just say that Amit, whatever your name is, and say okay, go. So once you click on okay, go, you are in. You can see here, see your nickname on the screen. You can see over here. I will see that there is a person with the name Amit Singh, which is here, right? So you will be here, and what we will be doing is basically you will be seeing a question on my screen, answers on your screen. Okay, so we'll be asking a question which will be having multiple choice questions, four questions, four answers for each question. So you need to pick the right one, and this is like fastest finger first. So whoever is going to give the correct answer first will be considered as the, like, there will be some point assigned to the user, to that particular user, and then based on the point, Kahoot is going to select the winner. So that's how it will basically will work. So Pankaj, how many people we have? Because I only see 20 people who have just joined.
Yeah,
Now we are
37 we have right now. There was 52 count earlier, but now we have 37. So we can ask, like, please guys, please join. So this is going to be a fun. Okay, please participate.
yeah. So basically, the winners, the top three winners of this quiz, we are going to get the training from MuleSoft partners, and they are also going to get the certification voucher of their own choice.
And answer will be in multiple choice question, right? That
Yeah.
quiz options. Yeah. So guys, you need to select the best answer for the question. Yeah, and the fastest one. 19.
So I think we need to start because count is not increasing. Okay. So I'll just log this